This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
Welcome back to the Goals.com podcast, the show where we dive deep into what really drives sales performance at the highest levels. Today's guest is Ellie Tava, founder and CEO of TTR Executive Coaching. Ellie helps people and sales team get unstuck and reach their greatest potential fast. Ellie uses a powerful framework built on awareness, accountability, performance, and optimization. She's on a mission to transform the way we sell by bringing a true coaching lens to the process. Trust me, this one's packed with insight, energy, and practical takeaways you won't want to miss. Ellie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me on here today. It's an honor. Thank you.
Ellie, can you tell us the story behind founding TTR Executive Coaching? What inspired you to start this journey?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it very much. I started my journey in sales shortly after a career shift and a career change. I was a paralegal and I was working on insurance defense and wrongful death and all this crazy stuff, high profile divorce, as well. Very interesting and great. But my personal life and my professional life took a different turn, and I got into sales. Now think about this: in the mid 1990s, there was this big boom called enterprise resource planning applications, and we sold them to mid-market manufacturers globally. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of words. But what happened is it started a trajectory of my meeting the most amazing people in the most beautiful parts of the world, doing great things, from Russell Stover Candies to Tyco to American Beacon, and then in the financial services world. And so people need things. And so sales started to become really real to me. And so for the better part of 15 years, I sold very large, complex solutions to very large Fortune 100 companies.
Wow. Your coaching model centers around awareness, accountability, performance, and optimization. Can you walk us through what that all looks like?
Yes. So about 5 years ago, I was really intrigued with how the sales force was changing, right? We were working in a matrixed organization. We were partnering with companies like AWS, Microsoft, Azure, very large technology companies, and businesses were changing, and so our methodology for selling was changing too as well. We had the new people coming in and people leaving, and so what I realized was that we need to be better at what we do. And how do we become better? We get coaches. And so looking at professional athletes, right? They get coaches for everything. They have coaches that tell them how to eat. And here we are working with these people who are having to make very large decisions for their organizations and these companies we use every day. So, but here's this one piece and this one conversation that we get to have with these amazing leaders and decision makers. And yet we're still here on the other side being driven by organizations and sales metrics and KPIs and goals. And so when we're the individual, we're here, we need to figure out who we are. And so that's why I created or went back and tried to see how can I coach people. Coaching is you hear it everywhere, right? There's life coaches and health coaches and all these coaches. Well, I started looking at sales coaching and realizing that, we really do need help. We really need to understand and maintain the integrity that we set out as salespeople to be. And so I started with awareness, because without being aware of where we want to go and what it is we want to do, then we can't do anything. We fail. 75% of sales executives do not meet their goals. Now think about that. Why is it? It's not because they're terrible at what they do. It's just that we lose our awareness. And so awareness was extremely important. I found that once people became aware of where it is they wanted to go and what it is they wanted to do, then they start to authentically work purposefully. So Andrew, what I did was, I went back, I studied coaching, what coaching is, what coaching isn't, and I aligned myself with a true understanding of what coaching is as it aligns with the International Coaching Federation. So I wasn't just declaring one day that I'm a coach, right? As there are people that do that, and they're natural, and they're wonderful, and they're helping people, but I didn't do that. I had to go back and study and get a certification in it. And that is when I realized, coupled with my sales experience, I realized that we need to have that awareness, that aha moment. If we don't have that aha moment, then we're punching holes in the darkness, as it's been said, right? So the other piece in coaching was that there was no accountability. And in sales, we're trying to hold our teams accountable. What have you done today? We have these fire drills. We have these one-on-one meetings, and we have so much administrative responsibility just in reflecting on what it is that we've done, how many calls we've made, how many meetings we've had, how many conversations are going to the next place. And we're just regurgitating the same thing over and over again. And so somebody's trying to hold us accountable. But what if you flip the script? What if we empowered and equipped people, salespeople specifically, to hold themselves accountable?
Right.
Well, guess what? We can do that through awareness and accountability. And we have this program, this accountability piece, which we call the 4 pillars of performance. And Andrew, my business partner is Derek Brownell. He's a former U.S. Olympic soccer player. He's still in Olympic soccer development for younger soccer players. And, so he took the tenets of Olympic soccer development, because you can become great at your craft, at your skill, right? And so he took those tenets and he said, how can we hold our sales teams accountable without holding them accountable? Right? Because in the end, you're a coach in Olympic soccer development. You're not going to go kick the ball for that athlete. You're going to hone in on their skills, but you're going to help them do it, because they have to be motivated and they have to do it. Right? And so we developed the 4 pillars of performance, which delves into the technical, the tactical, the energy, and the social and cultural construct of who we are and why we do what we do. And when we get there, we identify the gaps in our tactical skills, meaning that we are the player on the team, but who are the people around us? Have we developed the relationships with the people around us? Your client is the last person around you, but the people on your team, that's important, right? And what is it that you're contributing, and what is it you're doing, and how do you motivate yourself to do that? And then we get into the energy portion of it, of accountability. And that is where we identify, I would ask you, Andrew, what are your energy drivers? What gives you energy? Is it in the morning? Are you at your best in the morning? Or are you the best at night? What are your energy drainers? Right? Can you get out of bed at 5 a.m? Right? Maybe somebody can't, but it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they're not good at what they're doing. They just need to identify their energy drivers and their energy drainers. I'll give you a perfect example of this, Andrew. My husband is a chief risk officer for a financial services company, right? And I'm in sales. I love people. So we go to a party, and he's a really nice guy, Andrew. He's got Italian energy. He's really cool. I really like him, right?
That's good.
He exerts energy when he's communicating with other people, and I'm getting energy from people. So can you imagine that end of the day, at the end of the party, he's exhausted, thoroughly exhausted. And I'm just getting the party started. I'm ready to go. I want to know more about you, Andrew, right? Like, why do we have to leave? So we have this thing where he taps me on my knee when he's ready to go home. We have to understand each other, but we have to, and that's what we're identifying. I know this about me. I know that about him. And we're on a team and we figure it out and we work together. It's really kind of cool. So that's what we do on the accountability piece. So it's awareness, accountability, and then we start to perform. Because guess what? We already know what we're going to do. We already know how we're going to do it. We've already identified the people that are going to help us get there, or the people we're going to help get there. And then we optimize that. We continually process that, go through that process and that cycle. Every single time we think we're slipping, we're not making our numbers, let's go to our awareness. Let's figure out, is it technical? Is it tactical? Is it energy? You know, what's changed? You got a lot of salespeople who become fathers and mothers. Their energy levels are not where they were before.
Right.
So
I
we
can
start
attest
to understand all that. Pardon me?
I can attest to that. I've got 3 little ones.
Oh, very nice. Well, yes, you can definitely do that. And can you imagine living your life with awareness, with that kind of awareness in that role? Then you're going to be unstoppable.
You often talk about helping people get unstuck. What are some of the most common ways you see salespeople or sales leaders get stuck, and how do you help them break through?
Andrew, that's a loaded question, right? Because it's about individualities. It's about, it's about the struggle where, and I tell you, where I help people get unstuck is where they're burnt out. The average length of a tenure of a sales professional is 18 months. Let that sink in. 18 months. So I tell a lot of executives is, you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help anybody else. And that includes your clients. So helping people get unstuck is really helping them do an introspective look into where they are at this moment, where they are in the sales process, right? So we can use all these coaching skill sets and bring them into every aspect of our life, personally and professionally. We don't leave our personal lives at home all the time, right? In fact, there's a statistic, Andrew, which I think is just kind of fascinating, but says that 90% of what we think about at work has nothing to do with our jobs. Isn't that interesting? Yet, something like 80% or 85% of our reactions to anyone at work is based upon that 90% of thought. So I'll give you another example, Andrew. So there's somebody that has a daughter, and she's graduating from high school, and she's kind of she's a good student maybe, but she's just not studying for her SATs. And you're paying this money, to get her in an SAT course, and you're and you're worried now. You're at work and you're thinking about this. Oh, she's studying for her SATs. Right? Because she needs to get into a good college. Because if she doesn't get into a good college, then we're going to have to, and she's going to be upset. And you start to go down this thought process, right? And then all of a sudden somebody walks in and you're getting upset because you know that she can do this. So all of a sudden your heart rate starts to go up. Your emotions start to get, you're worried, you're scared for her, however you're going to react. And then somebody walks into your office and just out of the blue asks you something about work. And you respond. But you're responding with that energy. So again, we need to understand our awareness, our energy, right? And so we have to know and really work in a purposeful manner, right? We want to be purposeful in our and intentions, always at the forefront. So as we learn and we train ourselves to do this, we become better at our skills, and we become better at becoming salespeople and sales leaders. So I think helping people get unstuck and understanding who they are and understanding why they react the way they do and how we respond to things, I think that that is where people start to realize, okay, it's just, I need to develop a skill set. I need to develop a mindset. Doesn't mean that they're wrong in thinking the way they're thinking. It's just, it becomes difficult when we start to react on thoughts
Right.
that we're not controlling.
Sure. You emphasize selling through a coaching lens. How does that differ from traditional sales training or methodology?
I love that question, Andrew. I really do. I think it's because when leaders hire sales executives and sales individuals, there's an element of individuality there or differentiation there, right? You're going to hire someone that has that, maybe that warm personality, or maybe that excitement, or maybe the articulation, or maybe they know how to tell a story with fervor and grace and poise and whatever it is. You're gonna find that in the interview process, and that's what you're hiring them for, right? Because they're different. And if you're hiring an accountant, you're going to know that he needs to know his numbers, right? He needs to know, how to balance a ledger, right? But in sales, what's going to be different? Because every one of your clients are going to be different, and how can they immediately create trust and safety in the conversations that they're going to have with your potential clients, right? So this methodology helps individuals stay and keep a differentiator. They keep true to themselves and align and equip themselves and engage themselves in ways that are true to themselves, but still evoke trust and safety in the conversations and drive the sale forward. They are working purposefully. They have a conversation model in mind where they know exactly where the conversation is going. They understand that they're not going to sell something in a half an hour. They're not going to sell a business transformation solution with a hybrid cloud model in a half an hour or even in an hour. But they know with purposeful conversation and understanding and using a coaching lens, they're going to know through curiosity and discovery, they're going to know, okay, what's their problem? What is it? What does success look like for them at the end of this conversation or at the end of a project? Maybe somebody's job rides on it. And I've had those conversations, Andrew, over dinner, and they just trust me. And they look at me and they say, Ellie, if this granular component content management system doesn't work, I'm losing my job. Now think about that. All of a sudden, you're sharing in that pain.
Mm.
And you've developed a really good relationship because now you're working towards a solid good. And what is, for me, the best thing that could ever happen is doing something good for someone else, right? Serving others above self. And if you can do that and you get to that point in that relationship, then, you get a friend for life. On top of the sale, you get a client for life. So I think that that's the differentiator. It's we remain ourselves, but we become better versions of ourselves.
I love that. What mindset shifts do you believe are essential for sales reps to move from average to elite performance?
I love the word elite, right?
Right.
We all want to be elite performers.
We all
right?
want to be
think
elite.
We think of Michael Jordan. We think of just amazing. Let me take a step back. Two things. I think there are two things. Number one, approaching a sales opportunity not as a sales opportunity, but approaching it as an opportunity to get to know someone, to have a conversation. That's it. Just to have a conversation. The second is to approach a conversation with curiosity and discovery. And I would say that take that beyond the sales realm, take it to your home, to your spouses, to your children. Is engage in a conversation with curiosity and discovery. That will automatically promote open-ended questions. It'll promote trust and safety because you're genuinely interested, and only ask genuine questions, right? You want to be genuine. You want to be who you are. So a lot of times we want to get to the yes and we want to get to the no. There's famous people who've said that. Get to the no, get to the no. Well, I want to get to the no, K-N-O-W. That's
Like
what I
that.
want to get to,
Sure.
right? I don't want to get to the N-O. I want to get to the K-N-O-W. And if I can get to the K-N-O-W, that no, then I'm going to have a conversation. And they're going to want to have a conversation with me, because what promotes that is curiosity and discovery. So I'm curious, Andrew, you said you have 3 children. How old are they?
12, 9, and 8.
Oh, great ages, right? Which
Lots
one's the
going on.
most difficult for you, though?
You know, they all have their unique needs, and they're always shifting, you know, as they get a little older. And, you know, boys are a lot when they're really young. And then, you know, as the girls start to get a little bit older, their energy, as you say, changes, right? So
Yes.
but it's all good. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh, I love hearing that, Andrew. That's so beautiful. And you said girls, so I take it you have 2 girls and 1 boy?
No, I went boy, girl, boy. So I've got
Boy,
my
girl,
oldest
boy.
is a
Wow.
boy and my youngest is a boy, and then I've got my tough little girl in the middle who she's the boss. So she, you know, because she's in the middle, she has learned how to kind of control those two a little bit. So
Oh, I'm curious, does she control daddy too sometimes?
I hate to admit it, but she might have me wrapped around her finger. Definitely.
We have 3 daughters. My husband and I had 3 daughters.
Okay.
And so, yes, so all of them go to their daddy for everything, right? So it's wonderful. Same thing. They know how to do that. So kudos to you. I loved hearing about that. And thank you for sharing that with me.
Sure.
That's wonderful.
Can you share a specific example where a sales team transformed their results after applying your coaching model?
Yes, I can. I can't mention the name of the company, but and I want to hone in on one individual, the leader. You know, you're familiar with Napoleon Hill? He wrote the
Yeah.
17 Laws of Success. Okay, good.
Well, you become what you think about most of the time. That's Napoleon Hill.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I just love the 17 Laws of Success. I go back and read them all the time just to make sure that I'm aware of that. That's part of my awareness practice. So there was a young gentleman and he was struggling to lead an impactful sales team. And the reason for that was because he was hired from a very large global technology firm. But in that technology firm, he was part of a group of sales, right? So it was very matrix. People had their different, roles in the sales process. So he really didn't manage the sale from beginning to end, right? So, and that's kind of deceiving. He wasn't deceptive when he was hired, being hired. He just said, I managed a sales team. I did sales and solution sales, very large, complex, multi-year, multi-million dollar projects. Well, he gets into this leadership role and now he doesn't know who to talk to because he's realizing that he never really managed the sale from inception to execution. Now think about that, right? Now you're here, you're in this role, you're getting paid for it. Who do you talk to, right? So he sought out a coach, and it was interesting when we went into that awareness piece. This is where the truth starts to come out. We start to be truthful with ourselves, because that's where he learned. Oh, and he was so lovely a person that he was true and honest with himself, and that was an awakening, right? That was difficult awareness, and he realized that he didn't do that, and then he also realized that there were elements of the sales process that he didn't, he wasn't responsible for. And so he identified the gaps in his skill set. He identified the people in his organization who could help him get there fast and quickly so that he could lead his team with knowledge, with expertise and understanding. The last thing he did was he incorporated this awareness piece, the 4 pillars of performance, into his team. And what happened was the master mindset that Napoleon Hill talks about. Everyone came into alignment. Everyone was empowered. They were equipped to engage in the way they needed to engage so that they could meet the overall department goals and the overall goals of the organization. And that was because he was willing to be coached. And he changed and understood what his strengths were and where his energy drivers were and his energy drainers. And it changed the trajectory of where that sales team was going and where they were headed. So I would say that because that leader took the time to improve himself and become coached, and he transformed the team. And so therefore the team was transformed. And so it's one of my greatest stories. I love that. I love sharing that. It's wonderful. And every time I see him on LinkedIn and he's posting things, there's something that just like makes me smile because I'm thinking, wow.
I think that's perhaps the biggest takeaway from today is, the sign of a good leader is recognizing, when I do need to strengthen some skills in a few key areas. I think too many people are driven by ego and they feel like they have to pretend to be an expert already in everything, when the reality is nobody is. And for that particular person that you're referencing to recognize, hey, I might be in a little bit over my head at the moment and I'm going to fix this. And in order for me to fix this, I need to become better. And that sounds like that's what this gentleman did. And kudos to him and kudos to you.
Oh, well, no, thank you. It's actually them, right? It's actually you who makes the difference. It's never the coach. We're just asking questions that evoke that awareness to greatness. And that's really what coaching through selling through a coaching lens does. We help our clients to greatness through their ultimate decision-making process. And it's just a wonderful place to be and to see, right? To be that person, to see all that happen. It's just wonderful. Yeah.
Definitely. So how do you balance the need for performance and numbers with the personal growth and well-being of individual team members?
That's a tough one. You know, especially as a CEO, right? You're always looking at the numbers, right?
Sure am.
Our teams get their paychecks because of sales, right? Because somebody's willing to write a check for the services or the product that we're selling, right? And I always try to keep that first and foremost in our minds, especially with salespeople, because we often forget the money. We think the money's coming from the CEO, or we think the money's coming from our boss. It's it's how quickly we forget that the money that we get, the paychecks that we receive, are actually coming from the clients. And so that's, I think it's, again, being aware of that at all times. Consultants are great. Have you ever worked with a lot of consultants, right, in your career? I'm sure. And a lot of consultants, they're sometimes not nice to the client, to the customer. And I remember managing a group of consultants at a technology firm, a very large technology firm in California. And I remember just always having to remind them that the person with whom you're engaged is the one who's keeping us there. And so I think we have to understand that first and foremost. But also, when we engage and we equip, we empower our teams to understand that we are hired by an organization and we are and we have committed to a number or a quota that we've discussed. And it is also our responsibility, again, as sales individuals, And I hope that leaders can do this. We want to be able to empower and equip our teams, right? So again, those one-on-one meetings, those conversations we talked about earlier in this podcast, what we did was we still need those. Those are necessary. They have to, right? We need those because we need to give accountability, right? But with that coaching mindset, what happens is we don't feel like we're under scrutiny anymore. We feel like we're having a conversation. And if we know that a CEO was changed at a corporation, and this happens all the time, right? You're working with a CIO and he's your champion, and all of a sudden you pick up the phone and you're talking to someone else and you're like, oh, well, where's Keith? Oh, well, Keith left the company. And all of a sudden the sale's going to be delayed, right? But you've already forecasted it. So you have to be comfortable enough to say, hey, look, you know what? I want to, how can we do this? You're going to start developing a relationship. You're going to want to move it forward, right? But at the same time, you got to go talk to your team and you have to go talk to your boss. And you have to say, hey, look, you know what? I want to let you know this is what happened. It happened immediately. Here's what I'm going to do to try to correct it, to try to, keep it on task or keep it on point. We have to feel safe to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, because those numbers affect the numbers that go up the chain. And so I think what this does is it helps us develop the relationships and solidify the relationships and empower the relationships that we have in our own organization so that we can have those difficult conversations. Because those are difficult conversations. The exciting ones are exciting, right? When somebody's put pen on the paper and you've got your DocuSign document and you're sending it out to everybody and you're putting it up in Salesforce and you're saying, here's what's happening, or you put it into your CRM. We're excited about that. But we need to be able to have the difficult conversations too, because numbers do matter. We can't lose sight of that.
You work with both personal and professional transformation. How are the two connected in the context of sales success?
Personal and business. I love this. A lot of people think and genuinely believe that they can leave their personal life at home and just be professional at work at all times. Very few people can do that. We can't bifurcate ourselves, right? We can't split ourselves up. We are who we are. And especially in a workforce today that says, bring your authentic self to work. Well, you're not going to bring your authentic self if you're a different person at home, right? But there are elements that will trickle into your professional life. We need to identify that, understand that, because there might be some really good personal behavior that you can incorporate into your professional life. I'll give you a perfect example of this. There was a gentleman. He's part of an executive leadership team, a very large financial services organization, and one of the things that he would get evaluated on every year, right? And he called us because he needed some professional coaching. He would get evaluated, and his scores would plummet every time they talked about interpersonal relationships. And he said, "Look, I've made it my responsibility not to engage with anybody at work." Right? And we all know the news last week. You don't mix business with pleasure at all, anytime. What we want to do at times, though, is we get stuck and saying, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this. And all of a sudden, who trusts you? Who's your friend at work? You don't want any friends at work? You only want friends at home? Well, sometimes you show your friends a softer side of who you are, and maybe you need to show your team a softer side of who you are. Right? So I think when we become these great leaders in this you're at the executive leadership team, you tend to put rules and regulations around your space. And what happens is they become walls. They're actually bricks. And they become walls. And then you do great. You're delivering your numbers. but your relationships are dying out there. And he was becoming very upset about it, right? And instead of feeling sad for himself, he was getting angry. So, and he knew that something was stirring inside him. And so he went and found TTR Executive Coaching, and he has changed that. And a little bit was, he allowed himself to be his genuine self. And that means that I can have a conversation with you, Andrew. Come on in my office. How are you doing? Whereas before it was never. Andrew, where's the report? Andrew, how's the project coming along? It was never any kind of personal skills. So when we have that mindset and that awareness, we can definitely engage with people on a genuinely authentic way. Your way, Andrew, might not be my way, but people know genuine authenticity.
Sure. So, what advice would you give to a sales professional who feels burned out but still wants to grow and hit their numbers?
The advice that I would give them is find a good coach, I would say, so that you understand your awareness. Find out why you are feeling that way, right? When you start to look at that introspectively, you start to determine, is it personal? Am I stuck because there's something personal happening in my life? Or am I stuck because I feel imposter phenomenon at work? And I say those two things because that's exactly where I find a lot of people fall into those two categories. It's interesting how we don't bring our personal problems to work, but yet we act on those personal problems at work. Yeah, it's human, right? We are human. And so oftentimes then we start to hate our job, but it has nothing to do with our job. It has everything to do with our personal life. And if we look through that lens, Andrew, when we look at our people and our teams and we're talking to you, I don't know what happened last night, right? But something terrible could have happened last night and you show up for work the next day because you're committed to the project. Something, you could have been hurt or you could have been angry, whatever it is. We all come with baggage to work. But if we can come with empathy just to understand that, hey, look, you know what? I don't know what that person's going through, but Andrew's never short when I ask him a question. That kind of thing. Then you understand that they're human, that Andrew's human. He's not a robot. And so therefore I can forgive him, right? I can understand it. But if that happens all the time, then all of a sudden, guess what? I'm not talking to Andrew. I'm talking to my coworker about Andrew. And so things start to get really bad. And it could be that Andrew just had something terrible happen in his life. We need to be a little bit more empathetic. And I think that's one of the things. What we need to do is, again, going back to awareness and accountability, right? We need to be aware of everything that we do and how we do it. And just course correct at all times. Just keep course correcting.
Shifting gears just a little bit, what trends are you seeing in the coaching and sales development space that ambitious sales teams should be paying attention to?
There's a lot of coaching and sales methodologies and processes out there. I think many of them are good. Here's what I think, Andrew. I think opinions matter. Now, I listened to somebody when I was pregnant with my first daughter. I remember we had a baby shower, as they all do, right? We have a baby shower, and there were note cards, and it says, give someone a piece of advice, right? Give Ellie advice for having a first child. Out of all the cards I got, there's one that I remember specifically. And it said, listen to everyone's opinion. Just because you listen doesn't mean you have to accept the opinion. So I listened to everybody's opinion. But, and in doing so, I have learned so much, and I've taken from that, right? I've taken that opinion and I've applied it in my life because it works for me. So what I say, I liken that onto this question that you just asked, is I would say, study those processes. Listen to the sales, to that sales methodology. If you can take something or glean something from it that makes you better at what you do, remember we talked about that technical skill set. If it fills the gap of your technical skill set, then you've just empowered yourself. But if you say no to everything, oh, that's ridiculous, that doesn't work, then you're just shutting yourself off to everything and possibilities that may fill the gaps that you have right now as you pursue an optimal performance in sales. So that's what I would say. Listen, read, hear them out, but then choose the one that you feel most adapts to your culture. Remember, we talked about social and cultural, right? Everything ties to this A2PO formula. So when you go back and you choose as a leader, you choose that methodology, you choose that coaching style, you choose that awareness style, whatever it is that aligns to your cultural vision in your organization.
I love that advice. And in fact, in the world we live in today, especially the nation we live in today, there's such great political divide. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very firm in my political positions. Um, but I've definitely tried to challenge myself to do exactly what you're saying here. And that's, listen to other people's opinions and their perceptions and their side of things. And, um, it, like you said, it just empowers me more and it helps me learn. And I like to understand where I'll just call it the other side, you know, how they think and where they view things. And, um, I wish, I wish more people tried to practice that too, because I think that we would be a better society, um,
Mm.
rather than just taking this hardline approach to whatever I think is correct and whatever you think you're crazy. And, and I think that's just the nation we live in right now. And I hope that we can adopt exactly what you're talking about here today.
I love how you said that, Andrew. I love the way you said that because I, you know, I'm in your tribe. I totally get it, totally believe that 100%, unequivocally believe it because I, I love people. You love people. You love learning. That's just what I glean from what you just shared. Because when you do that, you shut no one out. You just listen, right? You're not saying you're going to agree with everything, but you're going to learn something from it. I love what you just said right there. And I'll share something with you. As I shared earlier, I worked in the legal field, right? Well, there was an attorney in our office and he had a temper. Oh, he was had a terrible, terrible, terrible temper. An unbelievable litigator, but a terrible temper. In fact, he gave me my nickname, Ellie. He did. Wonderful man, truly. But when he got in front of a judge, he could control his temper. He could control his demeanor. I find that with salespeople too. They could be very different in the office, but when they know that a sale is can be won or lost here, their temperament and their tolerance levels are through the roof. What if we did that every day through awareness? And I think that's what you're just saying. And that's why I love what you just said. I just love it.
So what does greatness look like to Ellie? And how do you help people define and pursue their own version of greatness?
That's a really good question. I think what greatness looks like for me is having the opportunity to have conversations like the one we just had today. It's the ability to see people grow and change, or just enhance the version of who they are. I love this. I was sharing with someone earlier today that there was a great book, and I don't know if you read it. It's called Transitions. It's by Gail Sheehy. I'll give you the information. But in this book, it really, the essence of, for what I understood, was just that, we transition in our lives. We go from infancy to childhood to adolescence, and adolescence, we get into our teenage years, right? We become these prepubescent teenagers, and then from there we become adults, right? So everyone understands us. We can forgive the high schooler who's acting, crazy. So we think, because they're going through puberty, right? They're going through adolescence, and we understand that because we went through that, right? And so we have this tolerance, and we transition, but we're transitioning. These humans are transitioning, right? We transition, but then we get to adulthood, and then we find our jobs, and all of a sudden there's no more transitions, right? But yet, for that span of time, until midlife crisis, people call it, or until we get into our elder years, during that time, we really are transitioning. We truly are. We just can't see it visibly. There's no pomp or circumstance with it. This is the major years we have in our careers, and we're expected to just maintain this trajectory, going up, steady, steady and calm and successful, but it doesn't happen that way. We are transitioning. So we have to understand that. I think if we can understand that in our lives, if I can help people with those transitions as they are in their career and in their personal life as an adult, then that's greatness to me, is having that opportunity to do that. There was a second part to that question. What was that?
How do you help define and pursue their own version of it, their own version of
great.
greatness?
All right. That's really important. So the International Coaching Federation defines coaching as a partnership between two people, a group of people, a room of people, but it's a partnership between two people, entities, where the coach, through thought-provoking questions, helps the other person, evoke awareness and helps them become and reach their greatest potential. That's what coaching is. Coaching is being able to ask those questions through curiosity, through discovery, understanding, introspection, and learning, and helping them unlock the answers that they already have in themselves. And that leads them to greatness. And so really in coaching, it's not anything that we do other than to have that conversation, ask those powerful questions, because we're trained to do that so that they can become their greatness.
I love it. I love your energy. I love your vibe. The beginning of this conversation, you talked about your journey on how you ended up in coaching, and I think it is safe to say you found your spot, you found your place, you found what you should be doing, because you have a natural and a gifted ability to help people look within themselves from that introspective way and unlock their true capabilities. And it's just been a true pleasure talking to you today, Ellie.
Andrew, I feel the same. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. I see you as a true servant leader. I just love the way you are passionate about the technologies that you build in your organization and the people for whom you do it, the salespeople for whom you do it. That takes someone once said, our servant towel must be larger than our ego. So I'm going to leave that with you. Andrew, I see that about you. You serve others above self. And I'm sure that that's why Goals.com is just doing so wonderful. And I couldn't be more blessed for having spoken with you today here. And I hope that, if one of your listeners takes something away that makes them or leads them to greatness, then I think we've done our job here.
It's
Thank you.
fantastic. I'm very grateful, very appreciative. I will leave Ellie's contact information in the show notes. So if people want to reach out to Ellie, that'd be fantastic. But Ellie, thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right, big thanks to Ellie Tava for joining us today and sharing her wisdom on selling through coaching, unlocking potential, and building a mindset for greatness. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Goals.com podcast so you never miss these conversations with top sales leaders. And if you're ready to take your own sales performance to the next level, check us out at Goals.com. We're here to help you hit your targets and stay motivated every single day. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep pushing toward your goals.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.